Hello, everyone. It's me, the creator and artist for this series. I'm the one that is writing the story as well as animating everything that you see here. Again, this is our first ever Q&A in which you guys send me any questions, other people I've told the story about, questions they had about it. This is just kind of a quick way to give some people refreshers or give a little more insight into some things that just weren't explained as well. As you know, these are to be uploaded after every 6 episodes, which in real world time comes out to about a month and a half. So, in about a month and a half, there'll be the Q&A part two, or basically the second episode. And always, I will try to get these episodes out weekly. There are some very, very memorable YouTubers who, unfortunately, as we all know, can't post very frequently, so there are long stretches of time in between their posts. Shout out to Salmonella for that. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and get into it, and we're going to see what questions you guys had for me. So, to kick it off, how many characters are there in the story? If you guys have watched episode 0, which is basically just an overview of the series, you would have a little more insight in that. But I do realize some people who just watched the episodes 1 to 5, well, 6 now, may not have an idea of how many characters there are in the story. Currently, there are 111 characters within the story. When I first did start writing, it actually only started with 5 characters. 4 of them being the peers that you know now, and one of them being a Titan. But as you can tell, the story has developed. There have been a lot of changes to many of the characters, what they go on to do. Actually, this kind of leads into another question that I do get, which I'd be more than happy to throw into this one. And a lot of people do ask me, well, how do you keep track of them all? And the easiest way for me to explain that is just think of it as a tree, or at the base, you do have, those starting characters that everything kind of comes from, and you have like these little branches that stick out. And in these branches, you have, bigger groups of characters and things like that. So it does make it very easy for me to remember a lot of them. If anything, maybe the names escape me at some times, but getting into the story later on, you guys will see that it's very easy to memorize them. Some names actually will be very easy to recognize and understand because of the nature of the story. So just stay tuned for that. And lastly, I did want to add that I don't see any new characters coming in the foreseeable future. Where it is at now, the 111, I feel that's a good place to stop. I don't think I need to add any more characters to the story. And that's question 1. Alright, so the next question is, what are the peers? This is a bit of a loaded question, but I'll try my best to explain it as briefly as I can. So the peers, and as you can guess, because of their elements, that's what they represent. They are the physical embodiments of it. So to put that in perspective, Reggie, in a sense, always existed. Him being the purifier, he was always around. Once fire was a concept, once it existed, once it was created, he was basically there. Right from the beginning of the universe, even to the first human making fire, he was there. So if you refer to one of the episodes where the peers were very fascinated with how humans were using these different elements, it wasn't more so the fact that they didn't think humans could do it on their own, but more so they're very, pleased that humans had done so much with what, is tantamount to different aspects of themselves. It's like if you had like a car, a car obviously isn't you, but it's it's kind of a part of you. So it's like if somebody took your car and was able to do something amazing with it. If somebody was able to take your money and, did God knows what with it and multiplied your wealth, you would look at that and you would be very pleased with that because, well, again, it isn't you, it comes from you. So anything great that comes from that, you take pride in that. So again, all of them, they're much older than you would think. Like I said, they basically grabbed these elements and said, all right, I'm going to give you consciousness. So they have, they've been around for basically since the beginning of the universe. And it isn't until recently they just have a physical embodiment to represent them. So to have them is to have the element. To not have them, you couldn't, there'd be no element. So it's hand in hand. So that is the easiest way I can explain them. And let's move on to the next question. Alright, so next up is question number 3. When will the story end? I'll keep this one very brief because I don't want to give away too much of the story. What you really have to remember is a lot of what I pulled from other mythologies in order to make this story and make it seem very kind of stand on its own, if anything, to set it apart from other stories, is its timeline. It's one that's always changing. It's a lot like in Greek mythology where you have these different eras within the story. The Bronze Era, the Silver Age, Golden Age, things like that is basically how it runs within the story. So, you have the age of the Titans, and then you have the age of the Pures. And before the two of them, you had the age of the Primordials, and even when it was just the main head honcho himself by himself. So, right now you really just have to follow the story, see each of the eras, and kind of see where we end up. That's all I'm really going to say for this part. Next question. So, question number 4, no doubt coming from the very recent events that just took place in some of the earlier episodes, how was Mora created? So this kind of ties back into the biology of the Pures. Not a lot of people know this, but it's kind of been easy to tell. A lot of the Pures, their element is based loosely off of the color that they represent. And this kind of goes into color theory, which is a concept you learn in art, where different colors obviously make other colors. So kind of running with that idea and running with how these elements would mix with each other, I came up with the idea of them kind of fusing together in order to make Mora. That's kind of where she gets a lot of her abilities from, and that's why she's able to, utilize electricity. Because to me, kind of my headcanon is, you have fire, which is, very destructive, and then you have water, which, is associated with rain and storms. You put the two of them together, boom, you got a lightning storm. And that, like I said, that reflects her element and her color very well. Lightning storms have that power and that ferocity of fire. They can destroy a lot of things with those lightning bolts that go off and hit things. And they also bring the aspect of water with them, in where, there's flooding, there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of downpour. That's basically how she came into play, how I decided her element, and even a lot of her design takes elements from both characters hair-wise. So that's just a quick little insight into some of the backstories of these characters, and let's go ahead and get into that next question. And the last question for today is, how long have I been writing this story? This all started back in 2012, and it really just started as me doodling some comics in my notebook. I would draw, basically, I would split the paper down the middle, and then I would split it down horizontal down the middle. And there would basically be four nations living together. The red one, blue one, green one, yellow one. Sound very familiar to Avatar. That's because it is. And I also took some inspiration from DC's Green Lanterns, where each of these nations had their own insignia, kind of like the Green Lantern rings do. So that is really where the story first started. It was really just me drawing these little comics. And from there it kind of grew. I kind of fleshed out a bit more. Why have whole countries when I can just focus on 4 characters? And that is where I kind of discovered, hey, I have 4 colors, but I don't have black and white. And it's funny, I was telling one of my friends about this at work. I actually got inspired by some dude's random sweater, because this sweater had like this diamond insignia on it, and it was half, black and white. The other side was also black and white, kind of like a yin yang thing. And I was like, boom, I got it right there. So that was actually the first Titan, and his name was actually Oriados, but I changed it because of the pronunciation and the spelling. So I just changed it to Orion, and he's actually, one of the original characters. And that is where I started with just the, just the 5 characters. From there, then I developed the story, and I finally put it all. Well, after a few rewrites, I put it all in this leather bound black book that I call the Bible, because it's basically my final draft of the story all the way up to a certain point in the story. So it's kind of like my magnum opus that people say, and I kind of follow that when I'm animating. After that, though, I did take a break for a while. I picked it up a few years later. I started doing webtoons, and similar to this, I uploaded every week. It was a lot of fun, but it was very draining, especially with my work-life balance at the time. So I decided to, basically cut it off. It is still up on Webtoon, same name, same logo, everything, Divinity. Um, and it actually has caught up, or the animation has caught up to that point in the story. That being said, the Webtoon actually, I think, is a little bit farther ahead. So you might spoil yourself if you read the Webtoon. But that's basically where that ended. Again, I took maybe a year after that, maybe 2 years after that, and I decided to get back into it again. I designed even more characters, more backgrounds, better stories, so we can connect with them a little more. And finally, here I am on the tertiary project, which is, the animation. And again, like I said, I don't need millions of people to watch. A handful was more than enough for me. It's really just me getting my work out there. And that's what the story is now. The way I'm writing it, the way I'm animating it, is basically the final say. I really don't see myself changing anything or retconning anything. This is really where the video ends. I thank you guys if you made it this far. The handful of you that are subscribed, thank you. And all the people that give me support to make it this far, to work this much on my story. And of course, a shout out to Mr.Socks and Salmonella because his videos are hilarious, and Mr.Socks because your music is, very good. I love listening to it, and I again thank you for allowing me to use it in my credits. And my family as well, my nephew, big help with the series. And stay tuned for the next episode coming out, where we see the resolution. And I hope you guys have a good start to your week. Later.